Hey there, and welcome, future English teachers. If you're gearing up with the TKT, you are in exactly the right place. In this explainer, we're going to build your essential grammar teaching toolkit from the ground up, focusing on those clear, simple concepts you'll need to help your own students really get it. So, you ready to build that toolkit? Awesome. First things first, let's get our heads in the right space. As teachers, we're not just memorizing a bunch of rules, right? We're learning how to empower our students with this amazing tool called language. It's all about building their confidence, not just marking their mistakes. Okay, so this is the classic textbook definition of grammar. But let's be honest, for our students, that can sound pretty intimidating. A much better way to frame it is to think of grammar as a GPS. It's the system we all share that guides us to create and understand meaning, making sure we all get to the same destination in a conversation. So here's our game plan. We'll start with grammar as our map. Then we'll look at the little building blocks, affixes. After that, we'll get into nouns, the words that name everything. Then verbs, the words that make things happen. And finally, we'll talk about adding all that color and detail. All right, first stop, our grammar map. Now, this map is built on what we call grammatical forms. Don't let the fancy name fool you. It's just the specific patterns we use to get a message across. For instance, just adding an S to make a word plural, that's a grammatical form. It's a simple, predictable pattern with a predictable meaning, and that's what we want to teach. Now, let's zoom in on the smallest pieces of that map, the little bits that can completely change a word's meaning with just a couple of letters. We're talking about affixes, and trust me, these are one of the most powerful tools for building vocabulary that you can give your students. And this right here, this is a golden analogy for your classroom. Tell your students to think of affixes like Lego blocks. You have your main word, right? And you can just snap these little pieces onto the front or the back to build a whole new word. It makes it visual and fun. First up, we've got prefixes. Like the name says, they're prefixed. They go at the beginning, and they're so useful because they often do something dramatic, like reverse the whole idea of the word. You know, you take a word like happy, slap un on the front, and you've completely flipped its meaning. So here's a great reference list of common prefixes. Now here's a teaching tip. Don't just overwhelm your students with this entire list at once. Start with the most common ones. Teach un and dis for opposites, and re for doing something again. Those give them a huge bang for their buck right away. Suffixes, on the other hand, are the Lego blocks we stick on the end of a word. Their effect is usually a little more subtle than a prefix. Instead of totally reversing the meaning, they often change the word's job, its part of speech. So the action teach becomes the person teacher. And this is where it gets really powerful for teaching, right? You can show your students the idea of word families. You show them how a verb like create can become a noun, creation by adding tion, or an adjective, creative, by adding iv. Just one concept and you've basically tripled their vocabulary. Okay, so we have our building blocks. Let's start putting them together into a sentence. And every good sentence, like a good movie, needs a star, a main character, an actor. And that's the main job of a noun. So this is the official formal definition, which is great for you, the teacher, to know. But for your students, especially beginners, keep it simple. Just tell them that nouns are naming words. Everything you can see, touch, or even think about, it has a name. And that name is a noun. Easy as that. Now, understanding these different categories is gonna be crucial when your students have questions. And a super common point of confusion is the difference between a common noun like city and a proper noun like Paris. Getting this distinction clear is the absolute key to teaching capitalization rules effectively. Sooner or later, a student is going to ask you, "Teacher, why can I say 2 books, but I can't say 2 waters?" This is a huge teaching moment. Give them this simple test. Can you put a number right in front of the word? If the answer is yes, it's countable. If it sounds weird, it's probably uncountable. Okay, so if nouns are the actors in our little sentence movie, then the verbs are the directors. They're the ones yelling action. They tell the actors what to do and get the whole story moving. You can think of verbs as the engine of the sentence. They give it life, they give it momentum. You can even point this out to your students. Without a verb, you don't really have a full sentence. You just have a list of actors standing around on stage with no direction. So let's be real, for so many of our students, mastering the past tense is going to be a huge milestone. And that means helping them get comfortable with the difference between regular verbs that just follow that nice simple ed pattern and all those irregular verbs like go becoming went that, well, they just have to be memorized. And this slide is fantastic because it illustrates the whole concept of tense. I mean, verb tenses are basically how we time travel with language. Our job as teachers is to show students how these tiny changes to a verb, like from have to had to will have, let them tell stories that jump between the past, the present, and the future. It's pretty cool. Okay, so we've got our actors, the nouns. We've got our action, the verbs, our sentence works. But now it's time for the fun part. Let's make it interesting. It's time to dress the set, add the special effects, and bring the story to life with adjectives and adverbs. Let's just stick with our movie analogy because it works so well. Think of adjectives as the costumes and the set design. They describe the nouns, right? What do the actors and places look like? Adverbs, then, are the lighting and special effects. They modify the action. How is the actor doing that action? Okay, if there's one thing you need to make crystal clear for your students, it's this distinction. Adjectives modify nouns. They answer questions like, what kind of chair? The beautiful chair. Adverbs, on the other hand, modify verbs, or even other adjectives. They answer, how does she run? She runs quickly. And you've got to give your students this amazing little shortcut. The lie trick is such a simple but powerful rule of thumb. It's a pattern they can spot when they're reading and a tool they can use when they're writing. Teaching them this little pattern will boost their competence like you wouldn't believe. And there you have it. We've put together the core of your teaching toolkit. You've got the map, the Lego blocks, the actors, the director, and all the special effects. And the best part is, you don't just know what they are, you've got simple, memorable ways to actually explain them to your students. So, as you keep studying for your TKT, I'll leave you with this question. Now that you have these tools, which one are you most excited to pull out of that new toolkit? What's the very first grammar point that you feel really ready and equipped to build an amazing lesson around for your students?